All righty, here we are at Sean's vessel. Sean, why don't you start us out? Yeah, here. Or Greg will run the camera. Yeah, crush everything there.
Yeah, now just sweep everything out of the way.
Do you want the back end?
Yeah, back end and then probably, or just take a 3/4.
I'm gonna close the shutter because people complained about getting seasick before. Only but a moment. Be patient.
Probably gonna take just kind of look angle in that. That works.
You want it any higher or?
Nope, done. Right, I'm good. All right, so, last month I did a talk on planking. For the past several weeks, I've been working on now the stern. I put in the stern plate, painted it brilliant blue. I started putting in the upper counter molding. I built out the lower portion of the transom wings. And then I'm going to make everybody sick, sorry. But I've also got the seat of ease placed in it on both sides. The freeze is just temporarily glued in place. I'm going to take it off and put probably a tissue paper version of it instead. I got to play around with that a little bit more. But I wanted to make sure I had the right scale printed out so that it fits the stern the way it's supposed to be. And then I retouched up the whales paint as well. So making progress.
Did you paint the freeze yourself?
No, part of what Siren put together was a series of artwork that you can print out on your printer and do it. So I'm not that well.
Have you decided if it's Winchelsea or Pearl?
Yeah, pretty much it's going to be Winchelsea. I've given up all my research, including reaching out to the museum at Greenwich to try to see if I could find any artwork that would show me what the friezes or carvings would have looked like on Pearl. I've been unable to. There are two very nice paintings out there of it, but they're distance views. The artists, I guess, didn't know the details, so painted it from a distance, so you can't see anything on it. So the only thing I have is a fairly decent picture of the figurehead, but the rest of it, and what attracted me to the model was the friezes. So I really wanted to do that. So it's going to be Winchelsea. So that's my model status today.
Very nice. Very nice.
I have a question going back to your planking demonstration. What's the rough ratio?
Looks really great, Sean. Beautiful. It's very impressive.
Thickness to height on the planks? You're bending them in two directions.
So it's for the quarter scale, the plank widths are a scaled foot. So planks, 364 is what I milled them down to.
Okay, I can't quite do the ratio of the thickness to the height, roughly.
It's
Yeah.
just to the scale of the ship
Okay.
planking.
The reason I ask is
3-inch.
The reason I ask is that I'm spiling out the planks, cutting the curves into it rather than bending it. For me, the ratio of the height of the plank,
3 to 60. 3 to 60.
3 to 16. Okay, thank you. Mine would be a lot bigger than that, and trying to bend it, I think, would be almost
Well,
impossible.
the whales were an quarter wide. So they were very, very thick. And I still use the same method, just keeping the heat to it for a
Yeah.
little longer.
But bending something that's a lot deeper than it is thick is really hard because it wants to buckle. It'll be, even with the heat applied, I think it would be very difficult. So,
Probably a lot more water and again, steaming it, heating it through.
that's what I'm doing. The reason I asked is I might do a presentation on how you go about it that way as opposed to heat bending. I really don't think I could heat bend something that tall and skinny.
So remember what I presented was steam, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it was wetted, it did have, you know, some moisture to it, and then it is essentially steaming the fibers.
Even that, I just don't imagine it would work.
Well, the fancy thing along the galleys, I've already broken 12 attempts because it's a little bit thicker, and I've already scraped the molding profile into it and applying water and heat to it, and I've allowed it to soak for several hours to see if that would help, and I'm still snapping up, so still working through that process. But in the siren model that I did, the transom bending, you know, the maple that I used on that was quite thick in its width, and I went through about 6 attempts before I finally got
A trick that I use is especially for something like the whales. You know, people have used ebony for the whales, and ebony is impossible to bend. Plus, the sawdust is a carcinogen. But what some modelers do, myself being one of them, you know, Greg, you're right on. You know, it's easier to bend in the narrow dimension than in the long dimension. Okay, it just doesn't want to bend. So a trick that I use with the whales is I just use laminations. I use laminations an awful lot. If I've got something with a square cross section instead of a rectangular cross section where I'm bending it in a narrow direction, what I'll do is either I'll get a square piece and machine it to the right thickness after I bend it, or better, like what I do for the headrails, for example, is I laminate pieces together. And you know, you don't if you make the joints tight, you don't really see it. And you know, from a real world example, if you ever look at one of those Anderson windows on that have a curvature to the top, and they'll sell trim, stainable trim that goes with the window. Well, you'll note that trim was put together in laminations. So you know that's the easiest way that I find to do it. Rather than driving yourself crazy, I just put several laminations. I bend one piece, I clamp it, and before it dries out, I bend another piece on top of it, let them dry thoroughly, then glue them together.
that is a cabinet
Yeah,
process for bending. You know, like if you look at Adirondack chairs and stuff like that.
that's a great recommendation for building up something thick like a whale, but I'm talking about on my lap strike boat. I'm not going to build up any planks there. They're just super wide for their thickness.
Yeah.
And that's what I've been doing all along. I asked because it would be a follow-up to his presentation. You know, it's a different way. Where you need to spile, how you do the spile. So I might do that. I might offer that for November or December.
That'd be a very interesting
The analogy is kind of a square piece of wood. When you bend it, it doesn't buckle one way or the other. Try bending a piece of paper. When you bend it, one edge just kicks out.
Yeah.
So I'll offer that to Ron for later.
Yeah, that would be that'd be a great I never planked a clinker built coal, and I'm sorry, lap straight coal. That would be really good.
You were right both times.
All righty. Don, you got something? Oh, sorry. Warren? No, you don't have anything? Uh-oh. Your turn, Caelan. Come on up.
Hold it. Yeah. I just get them to set things on the corner there.
Good morning, gentlemen. I'm glad to join your club. Yes, I think I went a little too far. I brought some of my models. Oh, another cardboard model. Start off. You might remember me bringing my plastic model tug last time. And here it is now. I have added some paint that I might have received from your guys. I do appreciate you. Next, I have my model of the USS Iowa. I bought this like about a few days ago. Probably kind of nice to do a battleship.
Let me zoom in on that for a second.
I did every detail by detail as accurate as I can. Yep. And, of course, you're amazed. The most realistic model ever that I've ever built. Made entirely of cardboard. The Titanic.
There you go.
I built this about a year ago. And it was like about 109 pieces of cardboard.
That's very inventive.
Mm. All I used was
To come up with that on your own, I think is fantastic.
yep,
Good
all
job.
I
Good
used
job.
images on the internet.
Very good. Very nice.
And I also am next planning to build a ship, which you guys can help me. Because I want it to be made of wood. It is a clipper ship.
That's ambitious.
I don't know which one, but definitely a clipper ship.
Build it out of wood or
Wood. So maybe you guys can help me since I joined your club.
your first scratch build?
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
Thank you.
And he's off to the races.
You have to try to Swift there.
Very good, Caelan. Thank you. All right, moving on. Got anything over there? Yes.
So I've continued my museum ship tour. I'm up to now 11 from last year. I didn't bring pictures, but Charleston has Essex class aircraft carrier, the Yorktown. Kind of getting tired of steel ship tours. Said, yeah, what'd you see? RMS Titanic, you'd see them all. But yeah, when I invited John to go to the under the New Jersey, he's like, I've done that. A much bigger scale. There is a really nice Medal of Honor exhibit on the hangar deck, which is also the only air conditioned place on the ship, which was really nice on a hot day. The Laffey is there, which was an incredible tour. Laffey was by 8 bombs and kamikazes in one day while on picket duty, and they have a really nice signage, information about the ship. Highly recommend that. I also went to the Hunley Museum and bought this die-cast Hunley. Hunley looks like the Monitor. It's in a tank full of fluids, and the day I was there was kind of dark. Like you see the Monitor turret on dark days. But the exhibits and the history were great. I met an author who's written books about the Hunley's crew while working in the taco stand shop, and ended up meeting up with her for lunch. And she's determined that there are actually 7 sinkings of the Hunley, not the 3 that are most popular, including somebody going down the hatch and hitting the diving planes down with their foot while the Hunley was under tow. And forward motion, diving planes down and down. That's in her second of 3 books about the crew. But this was from just a gift shop. It's very heavy and pretty. Second, whoever brought in the cherry branches a couple of weeks months ago. They here today. Now their boards and their knees. I need a thickness planer, which I may have to make a drum thickness planer. So if anybody's made one, knows how to control the height,
I've made
the
one.
spacing perfectly, maybe I can come over to your house and see yours. I've been fixing up the Delaware and North Carolina in the model shop. And I found these really great tweezers that are tension on for like $8 on eBay. I want to play with these. They're not too tight where they crush the wood. And I was actually able to reach down into the second deck down to fix a ladder. She is now mostly dust free. And then the important thing is my longboat. This is the progress since last time. I've got the pretty much the entire structure done. Still debating how I'm going to finish below the water line. Got a test strip here where I've focus.
It's probably a little bit too close to focus.
Yeah, where I've gone with a really light whitewash, so you can still see the planking and the nails that I put in there. As I said, I'm not doing it for the plans of the model shipways kit. I'm obviously blue instead of red. I'm not putting the fancy papers on there. And as I promised, I added a swivel gun to the bow. She's going to be going on a landing party or watering party. I'm going to make the masts and the rigging. I may not put them on. I may just put the oars on. But you can pass this around. The sample piece and the swivel gun are notch attached. Actually, the swivel gun mount is part of that cherry wood. And I've cut some strips of cherry for the rub rail. So thank you, whoever brought that in. They're here today. Yeah. Yeah, so I pass it around.
All righty, thank you. Anything else over there? On your table, anyone have anything? John, you guys? Nothing?
You have a whole hour of my stuff coming up.
All righty, I'll do mine last. Anyone online? Tom?
Yeah, I can, if you let me screen share.
You needed to do the options in order to
Can you
give
screen share
permission.
now?
Did you give permission yet?
Yeah, there he goes, yeah.
Okay. So what you see there is my almost complete Titanic. It's I have some a bunch more rigging to do. Can you see my cursor? Okay, these here lifeboats 1 and 2 were 25 footers, and they were kept outboard, and they were emergency. They were open, and the reason they were open there is that in case anybody fell overboard, they could launch these in a hurry. They're the only boats that were open. In the kit, they came covered, so I hollowed them out with my Fordham, and I detailed the interior. So see if I can blow it up a little bit. And there you go. Okay, it's a little bit out of focus now. All right, but you could also see lots of rigging, guide wires for all the funnels. The funnels are 3D printed from Model Monkey. Thank you folks for putting me on to Model Monkey. A bit pricey, they cost $10 each, but the results are astounding. So I met with the person who's getting this model yesterday, and we decided on a case for it. So that's the next thing to do. I have a few more rigging lines to put on. off the two forestays. The ship had arc lights, no electricity for the lights. So they had arc lights that were raised and lowered for various signal conditions. So there was one set on the top mast stay and the other one just below it. And there's one more on the stern side. And just to the point, these funnels are 3D printed, and I got these from a place in Wales. That how I found them was off of Model Shipways. I found the name, I found the website for this person, and I went and bought them from there. So Shapeways is out of business, but you know, I guess, you know, like Gene said, we'll find other ways to get it done. So yeah, so this is where I'm at right now. A lot of photo etch on here, which you folks already heard. You know, the crow's nest here, that's photo etch. Most of the vents and air handlers on the boat deck and the deck above are either very heavily modified from the kit or scratch built, because the cowl vents and stuff that came with the kit were drastically out of scale, and they were all identical. And what I found from my research, I found the research site that gives a general arrangement of the boat deck and shows every single vent, air handling unit, and cowl vent. And it's also keyed to a drawing of each vent. So there are 110 air handlers and vents on this ship. And like I said, most of them are scratch built. For any of you folks who are interested in building a Titanic, and Titanic is way outside of what I normally build, but the person I was using for a lot of my research, a Dr. Robert Reed, who's a retired dentist, for I don't know the exact reason, his website disappeared. So thankfully, the last time I went looking for something and I couldn't find it on his website, I happened to have downloaded it already to my computer. So I downloaded a lot of drawings and stuff onto the computer, but unfortunately, Dr. Reed's website has disappeared. And this is the second time it's disappeared. The first time it disappeared was about 8 months ago. And that was because the domain owner sold it. And when they converted his website to the new domain, they deleted most of it. So he had to reproduce it again. And then when I looked for it, I bookmarked his website. And then when I looked for 2 weeks ago, it was nowhere to be found. So thankfully, but his research is impeccable. He compares the Titanic against the Olympic and the Britannic. While the three ships were sisters of each other, they were definitely not identical. And he has research into all kinds of detail. And in the case of the Titanic, he actually compared drawings versus what's actually on the wreck. So it was excellent research. So if anybody has any questions on the model, you know, just drop me a line, or if it's something short I can answer now, fine. But I you know, I learned a lot with this. I was reluctant to build a Titanic. I think I told you, the person who wanted this Titanic was sitting at lunch one day, and he slides a photograph to me, and he says, "Tommy, I want one." And I looked at it and I says, "You want a Lego Titanic?" He says, "No, I want one like you build." So that's how I got to this one. I will tell you that I probably have a box load of throwaway plastic. A lot of the kit castings. When you're into 1/350 scale, you will find out that you are at the limits of casting styrene plastic. There is stuff that you just cannot cast in 1 to 350 in styrene plastic. These masts were impressive. I bought these from Sprue Brothers and they got in touch with a manufacturer in Poland. They're turned brass and they're scale accurate. The plastic ones that come with the kit, because you have so much rigging off all the masts, if you had plastic cast that thin, it would just bend all over the place. So you would have to go to brass. And these masts taper on the way up. These masts are obviously turned. They're exquisite, absolutely exquisite. The decks are printed decks. They're on wood lamination. The printing is wonderful. I will tell you though that in 1 to 350, even though they're literally paper thin, because you have 4 decks that stack up on each other, you got to account for the extra thickness of the deck. Otherwise, the stack up just doesn't work. And where that becomes critical is on these galleries here, these 2 side pieces, they affix to the side of the stacked up decks. So if the decks stack up and they're too wide apart, it's impossible to fit this on. So, like I say, I learned a lot. I got really good at an airbrush. I could strip down and clean a gravity airbrush in under 5 minutes. So, and like Gene alluded to many times, airbrushing involves 3 hours of masking and about 5 minutes of spraying. And that's it. I'll stop screen sharing if there are any questions.
Yes, Tom, what do you favor for the rigging materials that you use?
Okay, so I didn't bring it up. So for the rigging lines, these were roughly 5/8 to 1 inch to 1.5 inches max diameter. I used number 8 fly tying line, number 8 and number 6. Most of the lines on the Titanic were galvanized, so I used the gray version. Okay. For the falls on the boats, I used the tan version. Now, that said, as you folks are all aware, one of the big mistakes that people make when they do models like the Titanic is that all of the rigging is taut. And that is not the case, especially when you get to the Marconi antenna between the two masts. The Marconi antenna was 5/8 of an inch in diameter. There were 4 antenna lines, and then they were attached with downfalls to a stress isolator into the radio shack. Each of those lines was 5/8 inch. So I went looking around for how I'm going to do this, understanding that these lines also have to have a catenary drape to them. You can't do a catenary drape with fly tying silk. It'll just continue to curl or do whatever it wants to do because it's not heavy enough to drape. So I found a company called Model Kasten, Kasten. Kazten. It's a Japanese company, and I got 8/1000 Inconel wire, and that's what I used for the Marconi antenna. And interestingly, one of Robert Reed's research articles, he explained the theory behind the Marconi antenna, something that I didn't know. One of the many things I don't know is that between the leads to the radio shack, you have to have the exact same length of antenna on both sides. In other words, the distance from the leads to the end of the antenna on both sides has to be identical. Well, the radio shack was in the middle of the officer's cabin, so that's not equidistant from both masts. So you have insulators at the stern end of the antenna where you have hemp rope that connects it to the mainmast at the aft end of the ship. So what you have is I used crystal clear, put a dot of crystal clear on each wire and painted it black. And those are the electrical insulators between the hemp rope and the antenna itself. And interestingly enough, the Ship Model Society of New Jersey on next Saturday is going to be meeting at the Info Age Museum in Wall, New Jersey. And one of the interesting things about the Info Age museums in Wall, New Jersey, is that's where Marconi did a lot of his research. So all of this theory about the Marconi antenna and all this other stuff, I'll probably see it full scale down there.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay, folks.
All righty. Mort, you got anything for us today?
About January, the Jersey Club had an auction from an estate, and I bid on a model of the Diana, and this is what she basically looked like. The hull was complete, second planked. The deck was the upper deck was planked. All of the beams for the quarter deck and the forecastle were in place, but I wanted to show the captain's quarters. So what I did was I removed all the beams. I removed the planking at the rear because I'm going to replace it with the checkerboard planking of the captain's cabin. And I removed the last two bulkheads and the stern fascia and their counter patterns because I want to customize it. I want to put in the quarter galleries with the commodes and so forth. And I'm going to put in the captain's great cabin, his dining cabin, his coach, excuse me, and his bed place, which I'm going to do my best to furnish. And that's where I was until about 3 weeks ago when my nephew's son came to me, and my nephew had built the Lego model of the Titanic. So my nephew's son wants to play with it. And my nephew won't let him because it's 4.5 feet long. So he asked me to build him a model of the Titanic. So that's what I did right out of the box, the Rebelle model. So I'm almost finished with it. It's nowhere near as sophisticated as Tom's. It's just a plain plastic model. And that's about where I am right now. So we'll see what happens. Now, hopefully I'll finish it in about a week and I'll go back to the Diana.
You know, Mort, every once in a while, I love to get into like a out of the box plastic build because it's fun just to glue things together.
Mm-hmm. It's a whole different experience. I haven't done plastic in, it's got to be 40 years. It's just a whole different experience.
It's pretty rewarding though in and of itself.
Yeah, it is. It really is. I'm really glad it worked out that way.
All right, thank you, Mort.
My pleasure.
John, how about you?
I have something to show for just a minute.
Only a minute.
All right. I've been working on the Jeremiah O'Brien, which is a Liberty ship. And the kit that I bought from an auction there was pre-World War. And there was an option, of course, to build it for, during the war. And it meant had to buy an awful lot more fittings for it. The original model was based on 1947 drawings. And so I bought an updated set of drawings and then started purchasing items on from Blue Jacket to bring it up to date. I'm going to be mixing it though, because if you look up there at the front gun emplacement, you'll see very tiny little rails around it. And this is from the original kit. Those are all brass turned. And so I'm going to be purchasing instead of just the etched brass rails all over, I'm going to buy some more of these turns and then rig them separately. I think it looks a lot better. So I've just started on the rigging on it, have the masts in place, and both forward and aft gun emplacements are in place. Also some amidships gun emplacements. And I'm working now on the bridge structure. I just recently put the lifeboats in, and I tried to make it as realistic as possible. Went back and got photographs of the Jeremiah O'Brien so that I was able to see exactly how they rigged the lifeboats on it. So I've tried to do that as close to real as possible. And so that's about it right now. Also a small side project. It's a little Chesapeake flattie. This actually was a kit partially started by an ex-Navy nurse. And she used to do these a lot, gave it up, and she gave me the kit. So what I'm doing is putting it together, and I'm going to gift it back to her so she can put it on her bookshelves.
Good.
And that's it.
Thank you, John. All right, who's next up on that? Joshua, good to see you again. What's up with you?
Hey, how you doing? Yeah, I don't have too much substantial to show today. I've been working on the new chattel. I've been in the world of gun tackle. So hopefully I'm close. Maybe next week or next month I'll have something to show.
All righty. All right. And moving on to Joe. How you doing?
Good morning. I just came in from a repair at my daughter's. I'm just not set up, but I rejuvenated myself and got back on my cheerful, and I'll have something next session. My cameras and everything are not set up.
All righty. We will wait. And Kevin, how about you?
Well, I'm at my cottage, so I'm not in my workshop, but I do have two of my models that I've done. This is the Emma Berry, which I did quite a few years ago. She's got cloth sails, and more importantly, I rechristened her the HMS Shannon, because that's the daughter that gives me the most trouble. And this was my first fully framed model, and that's why I bought the kit. I wanted to learn how to build a fully framed model. And then over at the bar, the most important room in the world in the house is a scratch built of the America, and these sails are silk span, and she's configured the way I think a racing boat would have gone to England to beat the pants off the British. So, as you know, there are no plans that actually show the layout of this boat. I'm pretty happy with how it came out. And that's about it.
Looks like you need a trophy for that model.
Yeah, the trophy is just looking at her next to the rum bottle.
I think he belonged on like your trophy.
I'll mention it. Why don't you share my screen then? Any other or I do mine? Anyone else has something to share? All righty. Why don't you very nice share my my zip thing there.
Let's see. Show Kevin the
Yeah.
I thought he was there at the beginning.
one. Yeah, we're
All right. Got the camera? Yeah, I mentioned the trophy, Kevin, because what we've done, we've got a few here. Can you zoom into
you'll have to get close with it.
we have some trophies for America's Cup enthusiasts. I don't see if you can see that, but we'll have to make one available for you. Just let us know where we can send it to. Anyways, you put that on your deck or whatever you want to do.
She's beautiful.
Anyways, moving on to my Arizona project.
Where is the?
Oh, yeah, show and tell. Alrighty.
Okay,
doesn't
let's
do
see, I gotta do
period.
the spotlight,
Is what?
share screen.
Just maybe just highlight one of the first files. Yeah. Alrighty, just a quick recap. This is where it all started.
On land, can y'all see this? On land, anybody?
Yes.
Okay. All right, just to kind of give you a contrast of where I was and where I am now. It started life as the Arizona the trumpeter kit. Heavily modified because I wanted to bring it back to a 1916 configuration. So what you have here is the basic hull, and then which I started on, I don't know when, probably earlier this year or late last year. Next. And this is where I am today. It's coming along. I'm down to the minor details. And next.
Okay, I just want to make sure online, can y'all see the battleship? Arizona?
No,
No, we see the
No.
file.
No.
We see the file
the
directory.
file.
Okay,
Yeah, it's all we're seeing.
We see the file directory, and I see the camera showing the battleship off to the right. I think you got to
Right.
unpin your screen.
can I get Zoom back up? Rick, you know why I can't get Zoom back up?
Of course, he ran out.
Oh.
He saw
He knew what was.
Oh, shoot, okay, I think I'm gonna stop. Okay. All right,
Actually, it's working now.
Yeah, I gotta pull up the.
No, you're good.
Okay, we're on the camera now. We just have to share.
But no, it's,
It's shared. This is what they're seeing.
Yeah, that's
Online sees it now.
what are you seeing?
the live camera.
See the battleship on the camera.
Okay.
On the table.
The three trophies.
Okay, all right.
We're working on it. Hang on. This will get.
This is what I wanted. Now what are you seeing?
Yep, we're seeing it.
We're seeing it.
the actual pictures that Gene took.
On his workbench?
Yeah,
Correct.
yeah, we can see it on the
Yes,
bench
the
now.
workbench.
Your back up one picture.
Yes.
All right, so you see this now. This is where it all began. This is kind of the before picture, and then moving to the other picture.
When was that, Gene?
Oh, this was probably, I don't know, beginning of the year, late last year. Probably about 10 years ago or so, I had built that brass tower as a concept, and had put it aside for many years with the intention of getting to this stage. But this is when I started to build the model in earnest and had to convert the existing kit to something that resembled another. So, okay, next picture then. And then this is where I am today, or actually probably last week. So it's come along quite a bit. A lot of details, a myriad of little brass pieces, which I do myself next. So we're just gonna kind of take a quick tour of some of the little minor details. These are some of the edge anchors that were on board in the etchant tank next, and the size of them. In order to get the thickness, the 3D, I had to laminate them all together because the brass was, well, it's 10 thousandths brass. And you can see by the scale, they're pretty tiny. This was the larger one, and then of course the little one on the left. I wanted to kind of get John to do this for me, but is outside the scope of technical prowess.
The artwork.
The artwork. So, okay, move along. So these were etched and then soldered together. And next, in primer. And next, the scale of the little one, which is, well, it's diminutive.
Held by a criminal, you can tell by the fingerprint.
That's correct. And this is also some of the punt boats that had to be put on board. These are also made from brass and etched and soldered. Next. And then I thought I had ants, but next, they turned out to be little cleats. So I put a bunch of cleats on there. These are all also photo etched. Next. Yes. I had to put a 3-inch naval landing gun on board. And it started life as a 3D rendering, but when I got the rendering, it was horrible. So I threw it all away and redid it using a couple of pieces from the rendering, like chassis, and then the rest of it I etched and cobbled together. Next. And again, you can see the scale of this thing. It's tiny. Next. And there's a comparison of the original 3D rendering and then when I had finished up. And just a couple of pictures of the details around deck, the stack and the forward cage mast. Yeah, you can go on. Lots of little bits. What I have left to do next is basically just the crew, rigging, and a few other little details. And that's the what you call it, the rangefinder up in one of the towers.
Is any of it 3D printed, or is it all brass?
In this case, it's all brass, except for the 3D rendered sight rangefinder. Yeah, the mattresses are also brass. Alrighty, next. And there's the little gun in place with the kedge anchor. So that's pretty much the progress for today, and maybe by next month.
Hey, Gene, I got 2 questions for you. One is, what kind of drove you to make the cage mast so early? Was it to kind of see if the, proof of concept that you'd be able to build this model? And the second question is, did you use some sort of an armature to get that shape of the cage mast, i.e. like some sort of a wood dowel or something?
Well, I was gonna build this model some years back, but at the time I was juggling several kits at a time and projects. So I decided to just kind of start with the cage mast, start at the toughest aspect of it, and see if I could accomplish it. This was probably what would you say, John, 10 years ago, or maybe not quite so long ago. And then I kind of put the whole thing aside for a while and moved on to other projects. So that's where it started. I had fully intended to do this eventually, so I eventually got around to it. Now, as far as the mast itself, it's all brass rod, maybe 10 to 20 thousandths thickness, and it's built on a foundation of a top and bottom with an armature through the middle of it. There is no shape to it. If you assemble the mast, all the lines are straight, and the bottleneck illusion that you see in it is just that. But from point A to B, from the base to the top, are all straight run lines. So it's just a matter of anchoring the top and bottom and all the pre-drilled brass, and then feeding lines through it and soldering it. And the outer rings are just etched rings, which are then fitted on the outside. The actual mast has an inner and outer ring, but at this scale, it would have been ludicrous to try and represent the interior foundations too.
We're taking points off of that.
But I did put the internal ladder and some of the internal structures, the bases and levels, so that it's not just an empty shell all the way up.
Yeah, I think the internal structures are my favorite part, actually.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, very good.
The fire hose, fire plug there, the base of the mast.
Oh yeah, the base. Yeah, yeah. Well, my philosophy is if it's in the picture, it's going to go on the model. So so I just have to find smaller pictures. Yeah.
You started the cage mast shortly after you did
Yeah, I had built another model of it. Yeah, I did build the kit, the trumpeter kit out of the box, and then thought at that time I wanted to do another one in the other configuration, this configuration, and that's when I started the mast.
This is 1 to 200, right?
Yeah, this is 1/200, and the hull is, like I said, based on the trumpeter kit, but heavily modified to represent the earlier, and then everything else is pretty much scratch built. All the superstructures, the masts, some of the boats are brass. I mean, scratch built. Superstructures are brass.
you, Tim.
Yeah, yeah. And the little fittings and the little vents and things like that. It's all brass. I did use some of the kit pieces, like the ladders and some of the minor pieces, but very little of the kit survives. All in the box. And if anyone has an Arizona kit, they want 90% of the spare parts. So you're welcome to it. All right. Well, that's where I am today, and that's it. So we will take a brief break at this point, set up for the presentation that Dave will give, and thank you much.
Caelan, can you let me screen share? Because I'll run the slides off my computer.
Question or proposal?
Can you set me up so I can screen share?
Screen sharing, yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Oh, the Arizona? Oh, yeah. Oh, there's science there.